First and foremost, I want everybody to take a deep breath and relax, okay?
I feel like my eyes sticking to one side of my brain and shit, you know what I mean?
Go to bed,
Okay, my name is Taylor Dunn. Y'all keep it going.
You are now listening to the Mac Daddy Seminar, motherfucker.
What's cracking, pimps? What's going on? And welcome to episode 38 of the Mac Daddy Seminar. As always, I'm your host, Taylor Dunn. And I don't know if you can tell, you got to be watching the video podcast for this, but I finally got a haircut. That's right. Yeah. So I finally, during this whole quarantine, I got my haircut like a week before all of this started. And then once they started shutting everything down, I was like, great, I'm not going to be able to get a haircut. And I waited and I waited and I waited, and I finally, I couldn't take it anymore. And I asked my wife to cut my hair, and we sat on the back patio, and she cut my hair with a rusty pair of dog clippers that we use for our dog Pippins. And I'm going to be honest with you, I think she did a pretty damn good job. So if you're out here spending 20, 30 bucks on a haircut, invest in some clippers and have your wife or your significant other or even just a friend watch a 4-minute long YouTube tutorial on how to cut a fade, and you're gonna save hundreds of dollars every year. So enough with all of that, okay? Today we're back with the Wetumpka High School quarantine reunion. If you haven't seen anything about it before, let me talk about it a little bit. Basically what I do is I reconnect with a friend of mine from high school, and we just talk about what we've done since we graduated. My guest today is a former Air Force, he's an Air Force veteran. He also is a student at Florida State University. He runs a podcast called The Sample Podcast on iTunes, as well as his own YouTube channel. Look him up. My guest today is Cam Bickley.
So, first of all, I want to thank you for having me on the podcast, Taylor. It's a big honor to, cooperate, team up with a high school buddy of mine, man. So, thank you for having me on the podcast.
Same here, man. So, as you know, we've been doing the whole quarantine high school reunion. We both graduated class 2012 Wetumpka High School. And I ask everybody the same question. So we graduated. What happened after that?
So, graduated 2012. I was ready to just get the fuck away from Alabama, honestly, man. So, I graduated, worked at Walgreens for a little bit. And then while I was working at Walgreens, made the decision that I wanted to, serve the country. So, I joined the Air Force. So, from 2012 until August of last year, I was in the Air Force for that whole time, doing space systems operations. I was actually in what's now about to be the Space Force, like my career field. I was in space systems operations. So now that whole branch is becoming the Space Force, or that whole career field is becoming the Space Force. Got to see, some pretty cool stuff. Had a top secret clearance and all that good stuff. Went to Greenland, lived in California for a little while. Moved down to Florida. That was on the tail end of my contract. So as I was getting out, I was looking for schools to go to. And Florida State was actually one of my dream schools. So I was like, I might as well apply and see what happens. I was doing some research for my major. found out they had a major that I was really interested in, which is digital media production. So once I got out, made the transition out to civilian life, and now I'm going to school full time here at Florida State.
That's what's up, man.
Go Noles.
I hear you. So what all while you were in the Air Force, like what countries did you deploy to, or were you stationed in? Like, what all places did you get to see?
Outside of the U.S., it was just Greenland.
Okay.
It was just Greenland.
And I remember watching you on Instagram. You met Neil deGrasse Tyson out there, didn't you?
Yeah, man. Oh, NDT up there. He was like, well, he is a celebrity anyway. But once he got up there, people were just eating him up because he was talking about just like stuff that you wouldn't even like think about. Like he's just a very profound individual when it comes to just simple stuff. Like he'd be like, "Hey, can you tell me something about the universe?" And he'll tell you something that'll just be like, "What?"
Blow your mind. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember seeing that and I was like, "Oh shit, that's cool." Like anytime anybody gets to meet a celebrity, it's cool. But like him especially, I was pretty blown away.
Yeah, I'm sure you got to meet some celebs. You out in San Diego, you out in California, so I'm sure you bumped into some, right?
I mean, I've met a couple. Most of them are comedians because I spend a lot of time in the comedy clubs and I go and watch a lot of live comedy. Like anytime, somebody big is coming to town within reason, because sometimes people are really high ticket prices. In which case I just, I go to the Comedy Store in LA sometimes and that's the best place to see people.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've gone up there, I've seen Joe Rogan do an hour. I've seen Jim Gaffigan. I've met Chris D'Elia. I've met Bobby Lee. I've gotten to meet Donnell Rawlings.
Oh, that's dope. You got to meet Ashley Larry, man. I'm
jealous.
Yeah,
he was good. That was actually the first comic that I took my wife to see when we came out here.
Mm-hmm.
He came back out here back in November of last year, and with her, I always have to be kind of particular because I'll watch anybody. But with her, I had to find somebody that I know that she's really going to like. And I'm like, you're going to think this dude's funny.
Mm-hmm.
And I gave her the whole background. Like, he was on the Chappelle show. Like, he's like Dave Chappelle's right-hand man. Like, we got to go see him. And we went and saw him at the Comedy Store here in La Jolla. And she loved it. She did not stop laughing the whole time. And then when we got to, the show was over, she was like, come on, let's go home. Because she had been drinking. She was ready to leave. And I was like, just wait. Just hang out for just a second. I promise you we'll get to meet him and take a picture and all that stuff. And sure enough, he came out and, we were able to talk to him for a couple of minutes. And he was really cool dude, man.
That's what's up. And, I mean, was that the norm, though? Do most of the comedians stay after? Because if you would have got to meet Joe Rogan, that would have been real badass.
Yeah, I mean, if Joe Rogan was doing a smaller club like, the Comedy Store in La Jolla, because it only seats about 200 people, he probably would do somewhat of a meet and greet, but you got to think everybody in there is going to try and take pictures with him.
Yeah, legitimately.
So usually what they'll do is whenever they get done, they usually do about an hour, the headliner. They'll get up and they'll do about an hour. And then when they're done, they'll go off to the green room, go to the bathroom even, just kind of get settled after performing for a solid hour. And then they will, kind of look around, see who's still out there waiting on them. And that's really the main thing. Like the connection with fans is really what drives stand-up comedy. So, if you really relate to somebody as a comic and then you get to meet them and shake their hand and realize like, oh, he's just like me. It's cool. The Chris D'Elia was a big one for me. Like I really liked meeting Donnell Rawlings, but I mean, I hate to put it so bluntly, but if I had gotten to meet Dave Chappelle, I would have fainted and died right there. That's my number one.
Yeah,
but
you would have died on the spot.
Oh yeah, I fantasize about it all the time to my wife. I'm like, if I ever am at the Comedy Store in LA and he's in there and I get to talk to him, I'm probably gonna bust out crying. Like it's gonna be him and Jim Carrey are my number ones. There's a couple of other people that are in there that'd be like, I can't believe I'm finally getting to talk to you, but those two are my main ones. But Chris D'Elia was cool because I started listening to his podcast. He is who really gave me the idea to start this one before my last deployment. And you know, it was a tough deployment. I was working really hard, and you know, I was really trying hard to get a promotion, and you know, it took its toll on me mentally and, you know, even emotionally. So having that podcast, I think I listened to every episode. It just made that 7-month deployment go so much easier. So whenever I got back from that deployment and I went to go see him live, I went to go see him in Atlanta, and he was at the Tabernacle, and I think we paid like $40-$50 a seat just to go see him there. And like, we had to drive all the way from Mississippi and stay the night in Alabama and then drive to Atlanta to go see him. And, you
that
know,
sounds brutal.
It was tough, but I mean, it was still fun. I'd never been to the Tabernacle before. And he put on a good show. He did a lot of the same material that he just did for his Netflix special that just came out. And but we didn't get to meet him. You know, I was 300 feet away getting to watch him. He's this big on the stage.
Mm-hmm.
But when you go to the Comedy Store in LA, I mean, they're just walking around in the hall. I mean, it's like, I don't know if you've ever been, but it looks like a huge club, but it's not. Like, the main room seats about 350, 400 people. And then they have the belly room, which if you've watched Dave Chappelle's Bird Revelation special, the one where he's in that dark room and he's sitting on that stool, that's in the belly room at the Comedy Store, and it only seats about 60 people.
So it's more like intimate, like a smaller room.
That's the thing that's so cool about Dave is he will do the main room, but because he's such, I mean, to be honest with you, he's really sitting on the throne right now. When it comes to him, whenever he's in town, he'll call them. This is just what I've heard from sources because it's so hard to get tickets to go see him. He'll call up there and be like, hey, I want to come by and do a spot tonight. And they're like, okay. And they'll push everybody else off the schedule. And then he'll come, he'll come in and they'll be like, all right, so you're going to come on tonight at about 12 or 1. And he's like, yeah, I'll be around there sometime like that. And they're just like, okay, whatever. And the way they advertise it is they'll put it on their Instagram page and they'll say, you know, we have a secret headliner coming tonight. And they put a little hints like, this headliner smokes while he's performing. You're not allowed to bring your cell phones or anything like that. And, you know, it's kind of like luck of the draw. Last time it happened, I was like, this is him. This has got to be him. And I sat there and refreshed my phone over and over and over again, trying to get tickets. And it was like, tickets are not available, refresh, sold out.
Dang, they sold that quick. But I'm still not surprised, though.
Yeah. And then I came to find out the next day, because you don't know for sure if it's him until you get there or they post something about it the next day. And then I look on their page the next day and they're like, people that were able to get tickets who were lucky enough, you know, it's this small little bitty room. It only seats about 60 people. They said he did an hour and a half, and Leonardo DiCaprio, Paul Rudd, and John Mayer were in the audience.
What?
Yeah. So you'd be imagine sitting in a little bitty restaurant and Leonardo DiCaprio's over there and John Mayer, or, you know, some other like huge famous actors just sitting in there watching with you, you know? And they said that he was like, crowd. Yeah, they said he was messing with them and talking to him. He's like, is that Leonardo DiCaprio? So it's wild. And that's what I like so much about being out here in California is like just the accessibility to so much stuff. You know, I just, as much as I follow comedy and I try and, you know, go and watch it and meet people, like there's always people coming to town. There's not right now, but for the most part, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. And I kind of miss being in California, man, because I lived in some little butthole town that was like 2 hours south of well, so it was like the place I lived in was called Lompoc. If you remember Fast and the Furious, it was like when Vin Diesel was coming out of jail and he was like, I'm never going back to Lompoc. That's where I was living at. And it was about 3 hours away from LA. And it was like every time I went to LA, saw somebody famous. Like I was in the Macy's in like Beverly Hills, and I just see Machine Gun Kelly walking around. I'm like, what? This is weird. I'm in fucking I want to say I was in Best Buy or somewhere else, like an Apple store or something like that. I saw the bald dude from Seinfeld. Not Seinfeld, but like the short stubby dude with the like bald
Yeah, I know
spot,
who you're talking about. I don't know his name, but I know who you're talking about.
I saw him like just coming down the escalator. I'm like, what? It's hard, man. It's hard to go anywhere out there without seeing somebody famous.
I see people all the time, like since I've been out here, and I'm like, is that? And then I have to like look them up on my phone, and I'm like, nah, that ain't them. Like I'll see somebody that favors somebody famous. Like I thought for sure one night I saw Will Smith walking around.
Yeah, bro.
I was like, if this is Will Smith, I've got to get a picture with him. But Will Smith is, he's not a bitch by any means. Like he will knock your ass out if you run up on him. Like he's got all that muscle memory from that Ali movie. Mm-hmm. So you got to be calm when you're going up to meet really anybody. But when they're used to people running up to them, like I got a buddy when we went to go watch Joe Rogan. He's not, he's a little bit more shy than I am. So like when I met Chris D'Elia, I just saw him standing in the hallway, and I just walked up to him real slow and I was like, "Hey Chris, you mind if we take a picture together?" He was like, "Yeah, sure." And I snapped it real quick, and he was like, "All right, thanks, man." And he walked off. He had something he had to go do. So it was real quick exchange. But my buddy, whenever we were walking out and he saw Chris, he was like, "Oh," and like freaked out and shit. And and you could tell like he noticed him do that, and he was like, "Oh fuck," and like walked off. So
yeah, and I'm guilty of it. I did it once. I saw of all people, bro. I was in LA at the airport, and I saw Big Black. But this was like before. This was in between like me seeing him like losing a whole bunch of weight, so I didn't really know it was him because like before he passed, he lost a shit ton of weight. Yeah. So I'm thinking he's supposed to still be fat. I thought it was still like Big Black, and he was just sitting in like a luggage room, just chilling. And me being a creeper, I'm like, dang, that looked like Big Black. He's not that big anymore. So like I walked by the room, he was sitting down there like twice, and I was like peeping in the window, and he caught a glimpse of me walking by like twice. And I was like pulling up pictures on my phone, like trying to Google it, the Big Black lose weight, because I'm like, this dude looks a lot skinnier. So I just said, fuck it, I'm just going in and ask him. And like when I walked in, I looked down and I saw like the double B tattoo on his forearm. I'm like, yeah, that's him.
Yep.
And damn, I was like, hey, are you Big Black? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, can we take a picture? And he was like, no. And he just straight up told me no. No, he wasn't, because he was like, I saw you walking by, and people like me, I don't like that shit. And I was like,
damn.
Alrighty, so I guess I'll just get out of here.
Yeah,
kind of blew that one.
I mean, but at the same time, like I get where he's coming from, but at the same time, like whenever you're in that position, I'm sure it just gets old after a while, And if he was, his health was declining, he probably didn't feel good or something. I try to give people the benefit of the doubt. Me personally, nobody's ever been like, no, get the fuck away from me. That hasn't happened yet.
I was just being creepy. So I see why you said no.
It happens. The first time I ever actually met a famous person, quote unquote famous, was I was actually in Montgomery, and I was I forget the name of it. It's that flea market in Montgomery, that big green, it's old as hell. And it's over there kind of close to the Coliseum. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Like where they had a fair at? Like
yeah, it's close to that, but it's like an old antique store.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
It's like it's Eastbrook Flea Market.
I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so I'm in there walking around with my stepdad and my mom. I'm like 17 years old. And I'm in there walking around with them. They got me out of the house, and I'm just walking around. And all of a sudden, I see this dude, and I'm like, is that Kid Rock?
What?
I was like, what the fuck? And I looked him up on my phone. I was like, oh, shit. And my stepdad, he's a huge fan of like rock and roll and all types of music like that. And I was like, is that Kid Rock? And he was like, I think that is him. I was like, why don't we go talk to him? And he was too nervous to go talk to him. So I was like, fuck it. I'm not giving up the chance to take a picture with this dude. And he's like walking around in overalls and like a dirty T-shirt with a ball cap on.
Fitting right in.
Fitting right in. And I walked up and I was like, hey, this is going to be a really weird question if you don't answer it right, but are you Kid Rock? And he was like, yeah, I am. Like, you could tell he was trying to keep a low profile. And I noticed that, and I was like, hey, I know you're trying to keep a low profile, but, you know, I like a lot of your music, and I'd love to take a picture with you if that's cool. And he's like, yeah, man, that's good. And he, you know, told me he appreciated me, you know, telling him I liked his music, and we, like, took a selfie together right there in Eastbrook Flea Market. And he just went on his merry way, and nobody else hardly recognized him.
Yeah, he was incognito, man. He was blending in.
It was just
looking
so
like a
weird, like, because after I took picture with him, he was still in there shopping. Apparently, he owns land or some shit in Alabama, and he was trying to like furnish his new house or something. But he owns some land out there, and he has a house, and that's just what I've heard. But I just thought that, like, how crazy is that he was in Montgomery of all places, just walking around, like, and there wasn't a concert in town or anything like that. It was just like a random occurrence, and he was just in there.
Yeah, I mean, you find celebrities in spots that you don't even think about it. Because even when I was in Florida, when I was living in Destin, there was like this super rich, like loaded gated community that was like 15 minutes away from where I lived at. And one of my friends, her mom was like a property manager, and she had clients with property out there. But she was like always kind of secretive about who her clients were. And long story short, like, that neighborhood had a whole bunch of actors and shit out there. Like, I want to say Oprah had a house out there or something like that. And every time you see his helicopters flying through Destin, it's usually somebody famous flying out to that neighborhood. Destin was just like a loaded spot. So it's a great place for like vacationing, but there's a lot of rich people that live out there.
Oh yeah, and trust me, I know. Like, we live here on Coronado. Actually, like, it's in the Bay of San Diego. It's like this little bitty island that you take a bridge over to actually get to downtown. And I'm constantly like, whenever I walk around out here, I'm looking to see if there's, you know, a famous person or something walking around out here too. But just looking at, like, we don't live in those houses. We live in military housing. I'm not trying to give anybody the wrong impression, but
you're loaded. Just admit it, man.
No, not at all.
You're loaded, rolling in it.
Whenever, but when on my like way to work, I'm passing $4-5 million houses, people driving around in Lamborghinis and shit. And I'm like, I'm driving, you know, my 2016 Elantra that's dirty because I haven't washed it in a while. And, you know, I look like a bum going on the base. It's ridiculous. But you're not seeing a whole lot of it right now. This whole virus thing has got people out here acting a fool.
Like, not staying in? Are people staying in there, or are they just doing like normal shit?
To be honest with you, I think they're over it. Like, because we got the initial stay-at-home order early. It came like March 15th here, where it was like, hey, like, I really did not take it seriously until they started shutting the comedy clubs down. Because, so the last show that I went to, I didn't perform, but I went and watched. It was an event put on by Vet TV, where they had like
I followed him on Instagram.
Yeah, they did a series called Mandatory Fun, where they had like a bunch of ex-military or people currently serving who do stand-up go and basically perform, and a lot of their material is about the military and stuff like that. Well, they were doing their first season release party at the Comedy Store in La Jolla, so we went, great show and everything, but that same day is when, you know, everything was starting to heat up, and they said the one in LA was shutting down. And I was like, oh, what the fuck? Like, because the governor came out and he said, hey, we're not having any big events where more than 250 people are at. So the main room at the Comedy Store shut down, but they were like, oh, we're just going to keep the original room open. So, okay, no big deal. The one in La Jolla only seats 200 people. So they were like, we're good. We're under, you know, the guidelines or whatever. And they're like, we're going to take extra steps and keep everything clean. So we go to the show that night. Everything was good. And we leave, come back home, go to sleep. I wake up the next morning. It's like everywhere is closed. So I'm like,
Yep.
what? And like, I had tickets to go see Pauly Shore that following weekend. Me and my wife were going to go see Pauly Shore, and it just, everything shut down. So he had to reschedule all of his dates. And then before long, everybody started rescheduling their dates. Like, I had tickets to go see Andrew Schultz record his special in LA on the 11th. My buddy got them for me for Christmas, and he pushed that shit all the way back to November.
And he might have to push it again, honestly. The way this stuff's going.
Personally, I mean, I'm not an expert, but the way pretty much it seems like everywhere is starting to do like a soft open. Like, you can go out on the beaches, you can, you know, even restaurants are starting to operate at like 50% capacity, and, you know, so on and so forth. But I think we're on the tail end of this thing. I just personally, I don't feel like people are with it anymore. Like, at first it was scary and they're like, okay, yeah, I'll stay inside. But now it's like, all right, this shit is played out. I'm ready to go back to work.
Yeah. And that's all fine and good. But at the same time, I don't know. I just feel like with people, you mix people that got that attitude with like the reality of the situation. Like, I feel like it just might be round 2 of Corona. But since shit's open again, the news might just stop reporting on it and be like, all right, what's next?
I think that's
What's the flavor of the month?
I think, yeah, exactly. I think that was a lot to do with it. I feel like the media hyped it up so much. Now, granted, you know, a lot of people passed away, a lot of people got it, but I feel like the extent that it was taken to, I feel like they kind of overreacted.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's to me, that's just how I think the media is. It's just what's hot now.
Yeah,
because they might be saying, you know, 50,000 people in the U.S. died from coronavirus, but like, how many more people died from like old age or some shit like that? It's kind of like,
or H1N1. Like, like whenever they started bringing that up, I was like, I barely remember people even mentioning that. And it was like, well, more people died than they did from the coronavirus, but we just didn't report on it. It was like they didn't care as much. So I'm like, so why did we react the way that we did to all of this, where you got to wear a mask every time you go into the store? They're letting people in at a certain capacity. Like, it's still like that here. Like, going to Walmart, you got to have on a mask. You got to put on gloves. You got to walk in. You got to wait at the front door until the lady up front tells you can come in. And, you know, you don't have a time limit for how long you can be in the store, but, you know, you're kind of expected to just, hey, hurry up, get your stuff. Don't touch a lot of shit, and let's keep it moving so we can let more people in to get what they need to get.
Yeah, and then the mask thing, I see the vision, but it's like, if it's not airtight, if somebody sneezes on you, that shit's going right through the fabric. So
yeah,
I know you can feel protected as much as you want with your little bandana around your mouth, but if somebody sneezes in your direction, well, good luck.
Yeah, I'm right here next to the SEAL Beach. The people that are training to do like Navy SEALs and shit, every day I see them running back and forth across the road, because their barracks are on one side of the road from the training facility. So in the mornings when I'm on my way to work, I'll see them running back and forth, and all they got is a T-shirt wrapped around their head. And I'm like, is that supposed to protect them? But that's just the guidelines that they put out. Like, hey, something is better than nothing. So, like, I picked up somebody from the airport the other day, and he had you know, like a regular uniform T-shirt with some rubber bands tied around his face. And I was like, here, man, here, take a medical mask. Like, so, I mean,
You got to make do.
yeah, you do.
I guess.
I'm ready for this shit to be over with because, like, I'm pretty creative with like finding things that we can do around the house to keep ourselves entertained. But the funny thing about it is, like, we just got out here in September. So we got out here and we got set up in the new house, and then we started going out and having fun and whatnot. And then Christmas came, and, you know, we went to Disney for my daughter's birthday, and we had a decent Christmas, and, you know, we spent a decent amount of money. And then I was like, all right, so once all that's done, once my birthday rolls around, we're just going to kind of lay low for a little while. We're going to stop with all the going out to eat as much and going to theme parks and stuff like that. Like, let's try and get our money right again. And then once the summer rolls around, we'll go out and start doing stuff again. Well, literally the weekend that we were planning on, like, going to Belmont Park, it's this little theme park that's off the beach. My daughter loves it. And we had like season passes to go there. They shut down everything. So,
Youch.
yeah.
So did y'all get refunded?
That's something I'm trying to figure out because I bought an annual pass back in November for 3 people. It was like $300. And
Oof.
at the
A
time,
piece or total?
a total. It was like $100 a person. So, like, for what the normal day rate to go is like $50 a person. I mean, you know, you've lived in California. Shit is expensive out here.
Oh yeah.
But so it's like $50 a person. But if you're like a San Diego resident and you want to go more than once, you can just buy an annual pass, and it's only $100. So if you go 2 or 3 times, it pretty much pays for itself.
Yeah.
And that gives you access to everything. Like, we don't have to buy anything but food and souvenirs. So we'll go over there. Like, that's one of the ways that we quote unquote save money on the weekends.
So that amusement park food and the souvenirs at amusement park. Oh my God. There's no way I'm paying $12 for a turkey sandwich.
Oh yeah.
I can kiss my ass.
Same here. I'm not doing that shit. Most we'll get is like a drink.
And that's like $8.
Yeah. Sometimes we'll pack a lunch or something like that. Like, we try to be frugal with it. So like I get into the zoo for free, but I still got to pay for my wife and my daughter. That's $50 a person just to get, it's $100 for me to take, my wife and my 4-year-old kid to the zoo. So we're going to pack a lunch.
They don't give you like a discount for dependents or nothing like that? Because I did it before. I said, like, when I was in, I would take, like, if I was going with a chick or something, I'd be like, hey, this is my wife. And then you get it free.
I mean,
like, I just show them my ID and they're like, all right. Because I remember going to the zoo like twice in San Diego, matter of fact. And I was like, yeah, this is my wife. And they're like, all right, she's good.
Sometimes they do like a promotional deal. Like, SeaWorld does it to where once a year you can get everybody in your family in for free, but you can only do it once a year. So we did
at SeaWorld too.
We did it like end of November last year, and all of us got in for free. And I told my wife when we were leaving, like, hey, I'm not going to pay to go there. So we'll go once a year, but I mean, they just don't got that many rides. And, you've seen one dolphin show, you've seen them all. Like, there's only so many things you can train a dolphin to do. So if the dolphin hops up on the edge of that thing and starts singing and dancing and playing a ukulele, then we might go back. I might pay the money to see that shit. But yeah, my daughter.
Just throw an attack in every once in a while, spice it up.
Yeah.
And just get one of the old staff members. He's got to go sometime. So
something. I don't know. Probably the most we shelled out on a vacation since we've been here was Disney, which that was like $300 for a day.
Ooh, God.
Yeah.
Shit. Did y'all stay at Disney? Or?
So we stayed on we actually stayed on Knott's Berry Farm. So it was actually a 2-day vacation. Knott's Berry Farm ran a promotion where if you were in the military, through certain dates, you could go for free. Everybody in your party got in for free.
What?
So we did that, and we stayed the night at Knott's Berry Farm and their resort, which is literally right down the road from Disney. And it was cool. Like we drove up there early in the morning to Anaheim, which was about a 2-hour drive. Got there early, ate breakfast, all that good shit. And then we went into the park, rode all the roller coasters and all that. Their mascots at Knott's Berry Farm are all like Charlie Brown characters. So like Snoopy came up to the room and like took my daughter in and all that, took a few pictures with her and all that cool stuff. And the next morning we woke up, went to Disneyland, and we just drove back to San Diego that evening.
So that sounds like a long 2 days.
Oh, it was. We were exhausted. Because my big thing, since we got out here, it was getting used to the traffic. Because my first duty station was Gulfport, Mississippi. Wasn't a whole lot different than being in Alabama. And it was actually really close to being in Alabama. Like, the whole time we were there, I could go home if we had a 96 or a 72 or something like that. Like, I could just get in the car and, you know, if we left at 8 o'clock in the morning, we would be in Alabama by lunch. So it was cool. For the first 5 years, like when I was in Homeport, not on a deployment, we were back home all the time. But and it wasn't difficult. Like, the traffic was never really that bad. It was easy. But when I got out here to California, this was a whole nother ball game out here with 6 lanes of traffic and
Terrible.
oh man.
And you would think more lanes would mean traffic moves even faster, but no.
No.
It's just one big clusterfuck.
Yeah, this shit made me nervous when I first got here. Like, I've pretty much programmed myself to know exactly like what lane I need to be in to like make the least amount of change. Like, I drive like an old woman. So
sometimes you have to, going from Alabama to California.
I'll get in a lane and I'll ride that until I need to change. Like, my buddy, he has a Mustang, and he does some shit that they don't even do in movies sometimes. And I'll be holding on to that oh shit handle the entire time, like thinking I'm about to die. But
it's just so many cars on the road at once. Everybody's changing lanes. It's scary, man, if you're not used to that kind of traffic. Because I know I would try to avoid driving through Los Angeles for like the first couple of years I was out there, because all that traffic, and I didn't want to be in that shit. I mean, I would rather have somebody that was used to driving in it, and then I can get in the car, and then of course I'm gonna be like, yeah, I can drive, no problem. When on the inside, I'm like shitting my pants because it's just like so many cars on the road.
Yeah.
I'm trying to look cool for everybody else, but it just took some getting used to.
Yeah, my buddy, every time I've been to LA, all I've ever done is go to the Comedy Store. I've been there 4 times. Like, the first time we went, my buddy drove the entire trip. Like, we came out here last April before both of us left Gulfport. Like, he was in my last command with me, and we both found out that we got orders to come out here. So we're like, hey, let's take a road trip. Because he had a car that he wanted to leave here because he was going to drive his other car across country with his family in it. So we just took a road trip, drove from Gulfport, Mississippi, all the way to San Diego in like 4 days. And that shit was amazing. But he had to drive the entire time because it was a stick. And I don't know how to drive a stick. So, and with it being his car, he was like, I'll show you. And I was like, no, because if I wreck this thing, you're never going to forgive me. So I was like, it'd be better if you just drove. But we drove that entire time. Well, he drove that entire time. And then once we got here, he was driving every day because we were looking at houses and things like that just to kind of get a lay of the land before we actually moved out here. And he drove to LA. And since moving out here, he's drove to LA every time we've gone to the Comedy Store. And it's literally like you just take the 5 and then you get off on one exit and you're pretty much on Sunset. And that's where the Comedy Store is.
Yeah. That was one thing I did get out of the military. I learned how to drive stick because when I was in Greenland, every vehicle up there was stick. Like the vans was stick. We had to drive these little. They were like Toyota trucks, legit like the same trucks ISIS use. Like if you ever saw a video with fucking ISIS, the little Toyota trucks that they drive.
Yep.
The Toyota, I think they were Tacomas, but all of them were stick shift. So at some point, you're gonna have to drive to work, and you didn't want to be the only one that didn't know how to drive. So it was pretty frustrating, but I mean, it took like maybe a week. I had a homie of mine teach me.
Maybe I should do that now that we got all this extra time. Maybe I should just call him up and be like, hey, teach me how to drive your car. We'll go to a parking lot or some shit.
Yeah, it's not hard, bro. Like once you get the feel of it, no, it's not that hard. It's just kind of weird driving with both feet. And that was the only thing that took some getting used to.
Absolutely.
Do you got like the premium zoom? Because I don't know if it's like after 40 minutes, it'll be like, oh, the session ends.
No, so far, I mean, I don't know. I've recorded like hour and a half, almost 2 hour long episodes with some people. So,
okay.
This is the free one for all I know.
Oh, I thought it used to be 40 minutes, unless you, I don't know. Because I know when I was using it, would cut off after 40 minutes. It'll give me like a little warning. Then you got 5 minutes, wrap it up.
No, it ain't done that to me yet. I don't know. Maybe I did some loophole and I got like some special version for free.
It could be.
I don't know. But so tell me a little bit about your sample podcast, man.
Yeah, so I've been doing it for a little bit over a year now. Actually, I got some merch on.
I see that, yeah.
The sample podcast store. But yeah, it's a music podcast. There's a lot of music now that we hear on the radio. People don't know that it's sampled or like a chorus or a beat or something like that came from a song that got released at an earlier time. So I just be listening to music because I listen to a lot of music like all day. And I'm like, oh, this sounds like such and such. Or ain't this that song? And then when I hear the original song, I just get like that warm fuzzy feeling inside, like, yeah, I knew I was right. So I figured there's got to be other people that like, learning about new music and new artists and shit. So I just figured why not put them to a podcast? And that's where it is now. I mean, it's on Apple Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, just about any way you can find a podcast that it's on there.
That's what's up, man. Who are your like some of your favorite artists right now?
Oh, this is dude, MF Doom. I don't know if you ever listened to him.
I've heard of him before. Yeah.
Yeah, I like him. And let's see, some rock with MF Doom. Drake just dropped a new album, and I don't know. I'm just a Drake stan. I really like Drake.
I do too.
So whatever he drops, I'm on board with it. And,
I haven't listened to his new shit yet. I saw it that it dropped, but I haven't actually listened to it yet. But I catch myself like listening to just some of the stuff that's on my phone. Like I bought the Views album when it came out. I bought the latest one, that Scorpion album. I had to buy that one. After that whole Pusha T diss, I was like, okay, I got to hear what he came up with as some type of retort for.
Yeah.
That was the most disrespectful diss I think I've ever heard.
You gotta listen to Ether, like when Nas was dissing, Jesus Christ. When Nas was dissing Jay-Z, you gotta hear that. Ether was pretty hard, man.
I've listened to it, but I don't know. For me, like, because you got to think about the image that Drake had at the time that diss came out. Like, Drake was like the rap superhero for a little while. Like, he was like, I'm trying to think of the right way to put it. He's almost like a Mother Teresa of the rap game. Like, whenever he released God's Plan, like, everybody was like, wow, he really is a special guy. He's out here giving money to these people and like paying for people's educations. And he like makes this really uplifting song about this and that. And like, he's always had like really deep emotional lyrics. And then Pusha T comes in like a private investigator and completely exposes stuff that nobody had ever heard before. Like, I was on deployment when that shit dropped. I've been on deployments for 2 Drake beefs. The first one that he had with Meek Mill, which We all know how that went.
Yeah, that wasn't really much of a beef.
It wasn't much of a beef, but I was
It was
hyped
entertaining though.
Oh yeah. When that second one, like I remember he released 2 diss tracks. He did that. What was the first one? It was like Charged Up.
Charged Up was one, and I forgot what the other one was.
The other one was the main one, that back to back. And I'm telling you, because I was in Spain at the time, so we were on a different time zone. And I think we were eating lunch when it released. And I came running back in the office and I was like, y'all, Drake just released another diss track. And they were like, what? And everybody in the office like gathered around a computer while I played it. And we were all in there hype and screaming and laughing. It was hilarious. But pretty much the same thing happened whenever the Pusha T diss came out, which I really didn't even know that they were in that much of a beef. Like I didn't follow it as closely, I guess. I guess nobody was really tracking it on Twitter like they were the whole Meek Mill thing. But
yeah, it had been like a while coming because there was they were like subliminal shots, and then it just all came to a head.
Yeah. But for like from the picture that he posted as the cover art to, you know, talking about like you got a son that you haven't told anybody about. You need to let that boy come home. You got this woman living in another country that you've been hiding from people. You know, talked about old boy having like multiple sclerosis and stuff. Like I was like,
he just aired it out.
I was like, oh my God. And then he was like, now we could keep peeling this thing back layer by layer. What do you want to do? And then he left it alone. And then everybody was like, is Drake gonna go bar for bar with this man? And I remember because we were all debating it, like, oh, he's got to say something. Like that was the most disrespectful thing I've ever heard. Like he's got to do something. And he was like, I remember they did an interview and they asked him about it, and he was like, we're just here to talk about the album. And then some representative of Drake's went on the Breakfast Club, and he was like, so he did record a diss back at Pusha T, but it was just so blatantly disrespectful, we decided to take the high road and not release it. And I was like, if you don't get the fuck out of here with that,
give us what we want.
Exactly. Like there, no holds barred. After saying what he said, oh, I'd have locked myself in a room, which is kind of what he did, because it was like you were hearing a lot from Drake, like, oh, he's got an album coming out, he's got an album, and then he just went radio silent until the album dropped for like 3 weeks. And then to hear how much stuff changed on the album, like he went in there and fixed a lot of stuff after all that news got released.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he did, man. Yeah, he did.
And I mean, he recovered from it. Like I was like, this may be a career ender. But
at that point, I didn't think it was going to end his career. Like he might have just been quiet for a while. But even before that, I mean, he still had a solid career back him up. I mean, Take Care was, I think, his best album. So after that, I don't really think much topped it.
Yeah.
Views was all right.
I liked the change of pace of Views.
Cool,
like it had a lot more of like a dance rhythm to it. I feel like it was a lot more of an R&B album. He really wasn't rapping hard on anything. But so while we're on the subject, give me your take on J. Cole and Kendrick Lamar. Like where do you place them?
I think they're like neck and neck, honestly. I mean, I would say like if I had to rank them, I'd say 1A and 1B, with Kendrick being 1A and then J. Cole being 1B. Yeah, they both can tell a story. That's what I like about rappers. Like they can like carry you along through a story, and like they can like paint a picture for you too. So they're real lyrical, and then they're real explanatory with the lyrics. So they're both good in my book. Yeah,
I mean, like I listened to that first album that Kendrick dropped, not Section 80. I found out about that one after the fact, because I think that was just a mixtape. But his first like official like album release, that Good Kid, Mad City, I went and bought that from Best Buy. Like I actually bought the CD, and I put that thing in my car and I listened to that thing from start to finish. And I was like, this is like a fucking movie. Like I
Yeah,
could
it was.
see all the stuff that was happening. And that was really one of the first albums that, like, of course, if you go back and you listen to like Notorious B.I.G. and like Tupac or Wu-Tang Clan, like some of the same things happened. But when it came to that one, like, I was just like, golly, this shit seems just like a movie. Like, this is amazing. And I remember telling everybody, like, you got to listen to this new Kendrick album. And then, you know, J. Cole, I didn't really care so much for Born Sinner. I thought it was good, and it had a lot of songs on it that I liked, but compared to that Good Kid, Mad City, I was like, oh, this is ridiculous. Well, then I feel like J. Cole really stepped his game up with that Forest Hills Drive.
Mm-hmm.
No features.
That's still one of his best out. Exactly, and that was a lot that I feel like a lot of recognition that he didn't get for that album.
Oh yeah,
There's a lot of meat left on the bone, recognition wise.
oh yeah, for sure. I think it's funny whenever you see those like memes and they're like, y'all, J. Cole is starting to look homeless again. He's about to drop some heat.
Yeah,
He'll just lock himself away in the studio for weeks at a time and come out just looking like a bum, like just like sweatpants and a dirty t-shirt, and he'll just come walking out of the studio like he hasn't slept in 3 days, and you just know like, oh, he's about to release something.
mm-hmm.
But I bought the For Your Eyes Only album. I liked that one. I don't know, like I like to hear him go hard. Like I just want to hear like some stuff that'll make you just go like shiver when you listen to it, because you're like, God damn, like. But as I've gotten a little bit older, I've started to appreciate the more like the melody to things, and like, I don't know. I had a buddy on my last deployment. His name was Harvey, and he would be like, no, you got to listen to the softer stuff. That's where the meat is. I was like, okay. So I started listening to the slower
KOD
songs.
was kind of like that.
Oh yeah.
That's why I like KOD, because it was like he was rapping like on ATM. He was rapping, but it was just more about like current issues.
Yeah. That's the thing. I think that's why everybody holds him in such high regard, because, you know, they're some of the only real lyricists that we have left at that level of like being that high up in the rap game. I feel like they're some of the last real lyricists that we have. You know, of course, you know, Eminem is still around, but I don't know. His last couple of albums have kind of been just whatever for me. Like it's almost like, what else do you have to prove, you know?
Not much, honestly. I mean, it's not like I was expecting. I'm not expecting too much more out of him. I mean,
he said he's going to keep rapping until it's not fun anymore.
Okay. Well,
but I mean, he's in his mid 40s. Like, he'll be 50 in just a couple of years. That's what's so.
It's weird. And he's got the beard now, man. It's like a whole different person.
You know, he's only 1 year older than Tupac. No, he's actually a year younger than Tupac.
Really?
Yeah. I think Eminem was born in 72 and Tupac was born in 71. Like, my mom was born in 69. So anytime like they get brought up in the news or anything, because, you know, she saw how much interest I had in that music whenever I was, you know, in high school. So she, you know, trying to connect with me would, you know, kind of show a little bit of interest too. I'd be like, isn't it weird to think about, like, they're only a few years younger than you are? And she was like, yeah. I think Tupac, so 71, he'd be 49 years old. So Eminem is like 48.
Yeah, he's right there. They're right there neck and neck.
Still talking shit, rapping like he's 30. I won't say he's rapping like he's 30. Because when he was 30 was the, you know, the Slim Shady LP and, you know, all that shit, which that's when I feel like he was at his very best. Honestly, I know it's bad to say, but when he was on drugs, that was the Eminem that I liked to listen to.
Yeah, yeah, it's funny because like the last episode of my podcast was talking about a couple songs off Drake's new album, and then he used like a sample from Superman that was on the Eminem show. Like the part where he was like, women they come and go Monday through Sunday. Like, you know what I'm talking about, that part. But yeah, that was like when I really liked Eminem. And then when he had D12 in my band,
Yeah,
and all of that, that's when I was really rocking with Eminem. But yeah, like the Marshall Mathers project and the Eminem show, those were solid albums.
my favorite one was Relapse.
Relapse was solid.
That was, oh my God. Relapse was my absolute favorite because I remember being like 5 years old riding in the car, and I was sitting there listening. It was whenever that Two Trailer Park Girls Walk Around Me Outside, that whatever the name of that song is.
Oh yeah.
That was on the radio, and I remember my mom was like, "Do you like this song?" And I was like, "Yeah." She was like, "Yeah, it is a good one. You know he's a white guy, right?" And I was like, "What?" And I was just in disbelief. I was like, I didn't know that a white guy could rap. And you know, obviously, you know, people are like, "Oh, well, Vanilla Ice was one of the first ones, or the Beastie Boys, or you know," but I feel like he was one of the main ones to really hit mainstream the way that he did, like to be, you know, neck and neck with, at the time, Britney Spears and the Backstreet Boys. Like Eminem was huge in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
It's just wild. I'm really expecting a Kendrick Lamar album really any day now, and I've been saying that for the last couple of years.
Because he hadn't dropped any singles. He just went like missing, man. I don't know what happened.
The last time I heard anything about him, it was I think he's like helped out with a couple of projects. I think he's like co-produced or something with a few projects, but nothing big. But really the last time I like saw him like live was at like the 2018 national championship game he performed.
Yeah.
And I was like, when's this dude? That was like 2 years after Damn dropped. And I was like, when is this dude gonna release another album? And you can't trust anything you see. Like you see something on Facebook where it's like, you know, sources are saying that J. Cole and Kendrick Lamar are about to release an album next week, or you're like, what? Come on now. Because
I don't know. I don't think they're gonna collab on an album, but I feel like Kendrick's bringing something pretty soon.
I hear you. Well, hey man, I ain't gonna keep you too much longer. I'll let you go. I know we're both busy. We both got things we got to work on.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man.
Once again,
there's
big
a lot of
thanks
time
to
to
my
do
guest
stuff with
today,
all this
Cam
quarantine
Bickley.
going
Look
on.
him up on
I hear you.
Instagram. Look him up on YouTube. Check out.
Yeah,
his
man. Hey, I
podcast.
appreciate
His
you
podcast
sitting
is
down and
on
talking with me.
iTunes.
I'll have you back on here
He's
one
got a
day
lot
if you
of good
want.
stuff on there, and he's really knowledgeable.
Oh, for sure, man.
Hopefully,
For
when
sure.
we
It's
can
always
So
a
yeah,
go
good
that
out
pretty
and,
much wraps this
you know,
episode up, guys.
do
Once
some
again,
stuff.
Actually do
I
stuff.
really
Yeah.
appreciate all the support I'm getting.
Yeah,
from
man. But
y'all.
yeah, it was a pleasure
My
being on,
subscribers
man.
are
I
going
really
up, my
appreciate
views are
you
going up,
giving me the
and,
chance to come
you
on,
know,
talk,
you
chat
guys
up
are
with
the
you,
ones
catch
that are
up,
pushing this
and all
thing.
that good stuff,
You know,
man.
keep spreading
Absolutely,
the word.
man.
I enjoy
Same here.
doing it, and I'm sure you guys are.
Well,
enjoying
you take it
listening
easy, man.
and, you know,
I'll holler at you later
we're
on.
just
All
getting
right.
through this whole quarantine,
All right, man. Y'all stay
coronavirus
safe.
shit
Yep, you
together
too.
day by day. So whatever I can do to try and make that a little bit easier on anybody is what I try to do. If you like this podcast, you like anything that I put out on YouTube, go ahead and click that subscribe button, ring that bell. All those things build this channel every time you guys do it. And as I say, every single week, you guys are the fuel that's going to take this fucking rocket ship straight to the moon. Okay? With that being said, I appreciate you guys listening. And I will see you guys next week. Y'all take care.